Hannah, so happy to finally have you on the Education Next podcast. And here you are. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute honor. I am currently in Thailand. I'm not from Thailand. I'm from England
Mhm.
originally. I've been traveling and working around the world for the last almost 20 years now. And my career, I'm supporting people in becoming freelancers and virtual assistants. So for me, I think it's really important to spread knowledge around how basically the internet, Wi-Fi provides opportunities wherever you are. And I think it's just such a powerful way for people to have agency over their lives. So it's something I'm very passionate about sharing.
Oh, I have always admired all your newsletters. I generally get to learn a lot from everything that you post and everything that I read. In fact, my son also learns from your newsletters. And, we read a lot about these days about, college degree not being enough. And, you know, Gen Z is not very passionate about doing these degrees. And a lot of people are being laid off as well. So at a time like this, the impact of VA programs, virtual assistant program, can be great. I understand. In fact, I interviewed RBS and Modela recently, who had
Mhm.
done the VA program with Manabu and you, and they were so excited about the things they have learned. So, can you tell us a little bit about the VA program with Manabu movement?
Sure. So one of the things that was really cool partnering with Manabu was that they able to have our training reach young people who need it most. And I think right now, in a time, as you said, whether or not they want to go to university, young people, I think that there really is the job market is difficult right now globally. It's very, very difficult. And yet, I will say, it does feel like sometimes there's a lack of abundance. But if you flip the script a little bit, I think that if we can teach young people to kind of think outside the box and learn how to utilize skills that they have, even just life skills that they've developed at a young age, into services that people will spend money on, there's no longer a lack of abundance, but there's kind of a lack of imagination. So I think it's really instilling ideas about how to do things differently. And so with Manabu, that was really powerful. And I think that working with the young people was especially rewarding because they do have their entire lives in front of them. So whether they go on to be freelancers, whether they go on to start a company, whether they go on to get a job, just flipping how you think about what's possible from that young age can completely change the trajectory of their life. So for me, that was really interesting to see how they approach things differently to some of maybe our adult learners. And I think that was like the most eye-opening thing for me was just this is a moment in time working with them. But when you're young, you're taking so much information in and you're using it in different ways. And I wish I'd had that when I was young. I think that was really the thing for me.
I agree with you so much. Totally, feel that if I had something like that, with internet being able to connect us, for example, you and me here, right? People in different parts of the world, no matter where they are traveling, and they could do this even from a young age like that. I mean, what did I mention that she was 14 or 15, I think, when she joined this, and she discovered about the program, and I was really happy for her, as in, the exposure she has with both Arbias and Morella mentioned about the network that they have, that now they can ask anything they need. And I'm sure that even with your program, right, the virtual assistant program, there is the idea of network that you build. Uh, what would you say the importance of networking is in the current times for young people, especially?
I
Mhm.
think I think there's a couple of things. One, I think that the term networking scares a lot of people, and I think it scares young people as well, especially if you're a bit more introverted or you
Mhm.
get nervous in those kind of things. But I like to kind of consider your network, especially in the freelance or virtual assistant space. It's just your life network. It's just relationships. It's just friendships, essentially. So one of the things that we do in our programs, our VA programs, is ensure that people are connected from day one. And it is so, so, so important to do that. I think that when you have, and I've experienced this myself, when I've had traditional 9 to 5 jobs, for example, when I've left those jobs, the network that I had built within that particular career trajectory dissipated. And or I had signed an NDA, I wasn't able to take those contacts with me. But when you work for yourself, Your
Mm,
life network is something you start here and it just continues to grow and support you, and you continue to support it for your life.
mm,
And so I think it's a really powerful piece because one of the backbones of any successful virtual assistant is referrals. And when you have great people around you and they trust you and you trust them and you become a resource to clients as well. So you're not just saying, oh, well, I'm, let's say, a copywriter, for example, and
mm,
then your client says, I need a website built. And instead of saying, well, I don't know how to do that, you say, well, I know Abias can help you with that. Let me connect you. So you become a resource, a connector, and it's just good energy to have back and forth to have that kind of those kind of relationships. But it is really powerful in terms of getting clients and
mm,
staying relevant and staying up to speed on what's happening in your industry. So yeah, in our programs, it's baked in is that you absolutely get integrated into a global community, not just people in your local area, but a global community so you can start thinking globally around your career as well.
I think that's brilliant in the sense that, like you said, not everyone can have everything, right? But when you
Mhm.
have people maybe who are good writers, good editors, and then you can team up for various projects that you're working in, right? It gives you so much of exposure. At the same time, I
Absolutely.
also, it's my observation now that because I've been writing about the future of learning and living, I realized that it's so important now than ever to be this person, who just don't, you don't just go on collecting degrees and then figure out what should I do with my life now. That happens
Mhm.
a lot in, especially in India, when we don't really know what we're going to do, right? So somebody suggests this, we collect this degree, we go on, and then finally we ask ourselves, what am I going to do, what am I good at, because we never really figure out. But an exposure like this, for example, a small pilot program like the VA program that happened, can in fact even help you understand so much about yourself, as in what are
Yeah.
you good at. So, were there some discoveries that you found with some, people, young people, or even with your virtual assistant program? Do you have any discovery to share that people found out about themselves that they never knew?
Yeah, I think in general, freelancing opens doors that you didn't know existed. So, for example, you may come in thinking, well, I have experience with, let's say, coding, and I have experience with building websites and SEO. And then you come in and you start doing that. And then you're like, actually, I really enjoy doing AI automations, or I really enjoy this. So, I've had people come in. I have one example, one of the students of the Virtual Excellence Academy came in and she was like, I'm going to do graphic design and social media. I'm going to do social media management, social media marketing. And she came in and a couple of months in, she was like, I hate this. I hate this so much. But what I've realized I'm really good at, I'm really, really good at managing my clients and managing their teams. And so she moved into project management and team management. So I
Mhm.
think that it just opens you, you have more space to pivot more quickly and to try things out that you do or don't like and to drop things and pick new things up and learn on the job, like learn with your clients. I mean, there's absolutely hundreds of examples like that. I mean, I can give myself an example. I started in copywriting and I ended up doing tech automation. So yeah,
Mm.
learn while you're doing it, what you do and don't like. You might have an idea here, but you've got more space to quickly change and actually work with your clients because once you work with a client, you identify they don't just need that, they need all these other things. They're building a big business. So I think it's really cool that you have that space to play as well.
Yeah, and when generally people, they finish their degrees, they join any kind of job. Generally, what happens is you might come with a different skill set, and then you might be asked to do something very different. And then
Mm.
at an age when it's very late, you really struggle, right? As in, oh, I had this, qualification in something else, and but then the job requires you to do a lot of different things. And I think what with freelancing, maybe it just happens before, right? You understand even for example, my son is just 11 going to be 12, right?
Yeah,
so
he's amazing.
so what do you think that if is it a good idea for him to freelance? What would you say if he would love to with his skills?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's something that most young people should be exposed to. And I'm very, very adamant of like getting my training in front of as many young people as possible because, as I said before, it opens up the mindset about what is possible. It's not just the traditional curriculum. And as I said, I wish when I was young, I'd had this entrepreneurship. Freelancing was not an option. It just wasn't even in my mind. It was just like, I'm going
Mm,
to train for something and get that job. I think
mm,
so having that kind of exposure at a very young age allows them to think for themselves much sooner,
mm,
allows them to realize they have control over their lives much sooner, allows them to feel like they have a say about where their life is going. It's not dictated by someone else, an adult, for example, or multiple adults, or what society is expecting of them. They put expectations on themselves that are very different and aligned with what they're actually interested in. So I think all young people should be exposed to this kind of thing. And I think when they are, they're able to explore that kind of part of themselves, all different parts of themselves. Because I think you know this as well as I do, that when you're working for yourself, it's not just the work you're doing, it's
mm.
also it's also a personal development journey. And for
Absolutely.
young people, there are so many things that they'll face really early on that's going to get them well ahead by the time they're 20, 30 years old.
Correct.
Things like a fear of speaking in front of people. I know Addie is amazing at, being visible and being public. Like so many young people would not have those skills or
Mm,
don't have those skills because they have no exposure to the
mm.
internet and the opportunities that it provides them. There are good opportunities on the internet. Of course, there are terrible opportunities on the internet. Freelancing is one of those good opportunities that helps you on a personal level and a career level. So I think for young people, it's just such a powerful thing to have exposure to, whether they end up doing it or not. It's
Correct.
just the exposure.
I think one very interesting thing you mentioned is, with internet, it is possible for you to use it in a positive way or a negative way. Um,
Yes.
with Adi, when he started sharing a lot with the AI tools and products, there was so much of positivity from people as well as a lot of hate, as in why a young kid is doing this. But the idea of he going out there and exploring this quite ahead in life, I find it very, very interesting because it's just that he learns and then he just wanted to share. And
Yeah.
even with the idea of freelancing, when he worked with a couple of people, he works with a couple of people, and that helps, like you said, the personal development part. Like there are times when you don't feel heard, there are times when you might not be really comfortable, and then you face this situation, right? What do you do when somebody might not be happy with your work, and you have to go through all this. Is very real life learning, right? Just not going and editing something, but facing that person on a day-to-day basis, right? So I think this is a very, very real life skill, and I agree with the freelancing part that you mentioned. Now, there's another fear with young people, with AI, as
Mm.
AI is going to take most of the menial jobs, and
Mm.
so how would it affect the freelancing world as well?
Mhm. I am in the camp where I feel like if you can embrace AI as a freelancer, it's going to help you keep ahead. Instead of kind of fearing it, maybe framing it as like your unpaid intern. Like
Mm,
it can do so much, it can make you more efficient. And there are also what I'm seeing. So on the flip side of my business, I support clients who are looking to hire trained
mm,
virtual assistants and freelancers. And what we're seeing is that more than 60% of those people coming to hire are listing AI skills as one of the desired things when it comes to hiring. So at the end of the day, clients who are looking for support, if they want AI solutions, they still don't want to use the AI. They want to hire someone to do that for them. People still want to outsource that. So I think embracing AI, seeing it as a tool to be more efficient, be more imaginative in how you provide solutions to your clients. There are so many things that you can create with AI now. You can create tools that your clients can use. That sets you a step ahead. You can create custom GPTs for your clients and their clients. I think if you can embrace it, it's not going to see you out of work. It's going to see you with an abundance of work in a specialized path that's actually going to see you making more money down the road. And kind of it's future-proofing your career. AI is not going away. We know that. It's going to change and it's going to develop and it's going to become smarter. And so I think now if you can get at a very minimum, if any freelancers are listening to this, you're already freelancing and you haven't embraced AI, I think just getting the bare minimums, understanding of how it works, how you can use it for simple day-to-day tasks, that's already going to set you ahead of someone who else is completely ignoring it or is afraid of it. And then on the flip side of that, you can completely specialize in AI. And that is what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of demand for AI specialists now.
That's wonderful advice. I'm sure people would get that, considering how, we hear about AI so much, right? Taking people, I mean, big companies replacing freshers with AI in their companies, that becomes
Yeah.
scary. Young people, when I was talking to Mural and RB as this came out, they start getting good at one particular thing, especially, and then it comes about the personal branding, right? So they want to brand they want to build a website, and then the problem comes about marketing it. I think a lot of people struggle with the marketing part. In your experience with training so many people, what is one constraint, or I would say major problem that freelancers face generally, and how do you suggest they should deal with it?
I think it's a two-part answer. I think the biggest perceived problem and actual problem, that's why it's two-part. It's an actual problem, but it's also a perceived problem, is finding clients, right? You need to find your own
Mm,
clients. So which is
mm,
directly tied to marketing. So I think that comes from a few places that, of course, it's scary. But you need to frame it that if you're looking for clients, it's the same as looking for a job,
mm,
right? You're out of employment. If you don't have clients, it's a different process, but it's the
mm,
same action, right?
mm,
So in today's market, we're actually seeing, and there's statistics around this, I don't have them handy, but I can provide them afterwards for the show notes. There are statistics right now around how long it typically takes to land a traditional job right now
mm,
versus freelance. Now,
mm,
with freelancing, this is why networking is so, so important, is that when you have freelance, when you do targeted outreach and you have a specialized area that you work in, or there's a particular type of people that you work with, it's a much easier in when you're having those warm conversations with people versus applying to a job where you don't know anybody. They might ask for years of experience that you do or don't have. Maybe you didn't use the right terminology on the resume, so the ATS software is not letting it through. It's a much more personalized approach with freelancing. So networking, again, while that sounds like a scary thing, there's plenty of ways to do it effectively. But I think using the internet to your advantage to showcase what you can do. So I always say that the best way to land clients as a virtual assistant or a freelancer is not necessarily having a great resume and having a great LinkedIn profile. While those things are also important, the most important thing is showcasing that you can do what you say you can do. So a
mm,
really portfolio. If you want to be a social media manager or you want to be managing people's Instagram accounts, your Instagram account should reflect what you can do. If you're going to be a web designer, that should reflect what you can do. If you're going to be project management, maybe when people come to your resume, it's actually a Trello board where people can go through and like you can think outside the box about how you present it, but then the networking piece needs to come because no one's just going to find that. You need to talk to people about what you're doing. You need to go to events, whether they're virtual or in person. We find that to be one of the most powerful ways to land clients is networking at events specifically, industry specific events to freelancing, virtual assistants, or industry of your clients that you choose to work with.
mm,
That's probably the best way to find clients. But referrals are really rich when it comes to coming to freelance specific events. Events are great. And then, showcasing what you do virtually as well. One of the ways that I used to get clients and that my students use in different capacities now with changing technology
mm,
is when I used to do tech fixes for people, I would go into Facebook groups, I would find the common questions people were asking about the specific software I used. And I
mm,
wrote down the questions, the top 10 questions, and I made a 3-minute YouTube video for each of those 10 questions, showing them how to fix that problem. And then in the description, if you don't want to do it yourself, reach out to me. I got tons of clients from that. So you can be really inventive with how you do it, and it can be very specific to the work you do and who you work with.
mm,
But typically, getting in front of the people that you want to work with, showcasing that you can do what you say you can do, going to industry specific events and making sure that your ducks are in a row when people come to your profiles, they come to your website. Those things are, I'm not going to say less important, but they're behind the scenes. You need to have something up front and you need to be talking about it regularly. And you need to be networking with other freelancers and virtual assistants too, because as I said, referrals are really the backbone.
Yeah, I think with that, I also think that being really skillful, like you said, you had really need to show what you're good at, right? But if you're going to say that I'm going to help you increase your Instagram followers, for example, you really need to show that, and which really needs that uh, you really need to be good at something, right, to be able to sell it. I think going into the niche of it. And do you think freelancers also need to be very niche based, like you get good at one thing where you're really good at, or it's okay to be a generalist and have, does that work?
Yes to both. One, I think if you're not super clear on, or let's say you have a really big interest in a particular area and it makes sense for you to just hone in on that particular skill and get really good at it, then yes, amazing. If you are really good at graphic design, you want to be an amazing graphic designer, go all in. If you're someone who's a little bit unsure, or you are a generalist, you're good at a lot of things.
Mm,
I do suggest still niching, but niching in a different way. So I can suggest niching in a way by instead of saying, well, okay, I only work with life coaches, for example, like the actual types of people you work with. You can also niche by values. So you can be like, I only want to work with people and organizations who care about the environment and do something about it. So that means that you're working with people you enjoy working with, but the scope of what you can offer them is pretty broad. Because I think it's still important to have a common shared language with the people that you work with, a common shared set of values, a common shared set of industry interest, for example. But then on the other side, you can, if you want to, and you can do both those things. You could say, I'm a web designer that helps restaurant businesses, for example. Or you could be like, I'm a copywriter who works with life coaches. Or you can say, I'm an all-round tech specialist. I can do a
mm,
bunch of techie things, and I support people who care about LGBTQ rights. So you can kind of mix it up, but I think that it is important to have some sort of element that differentiates you essentially. So it's kind of like the non-niching niching is what I kind of
mm.
lean towards.
Yeah, that makes sense. And a lot of young people come to the website. So I was just wondering that in your experience, when you see a lot of young freelancers, uh, what could help them more, you think, according to you? Is it tools? Is it, would they like to read more about young people who are achieving more, or tech startups, or AI? What do you think is a good
Yeah.
idea?
I think AI is definitely something they want to learn more about. I'm seeing
Mm,
that a lot of the young people in general, like it's one of
mm,
the first things out of their mouth. Like, what kind of AI services can I offer? What can I learn? What AI tools should I be checking out?
mm,
Which ones are free to me to get started with and learn? So definitely AI. But I also think that one of the biggest pieces is I think a lot of them are looking for experience with like kind of people skills. So
mm,
I think if there's anything you could offer in the way of, how to have a discovery call with a client effectively, how to craft, even just simple things like how to have professional email back and forth. Like I think a lot of young people struggle with that because it's not something they've been exposed to yet. So I think a lot of the things that I'm finding that they're kind of worried about or more hesitant or nervous about is actually communicating with the clients directly. What AI things that's getting them really excited. The AI has them very excited. And then I think in terms of how we're teaching,
mm.
we've included a lot more gamification when it comes to working with young people because attention spans need, everyone's on TikTok these days and you need quick, 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 quick. So I think, if you could integrate, on the website, on the blog, on the newsletter, things like polls, more polls and quizzes, those kinds of things are really fun for you to see what people actually want to hear more about as well. And it's also engaging for the young people to work in that kind of way. That's kind of what we're doing, and that could be something that you integrate as well. But yeah, I think attention spans are a lot shorter with younger people these days for obvious reasons, which nothing wrong with that, but it just means that in how we teach and how we speak to them needs to be different. Um, I think people skills, like one-to-one stuff with clients, I think some young people are a little nervous speaking to older people in different countries and different cultures. So I think more education around that, and then just they're really keen about AI right now.
Oh, thank you. That was a very, very personal question from my side. But before wrapping up, there's a special question from a special person who said that I make sure that I ask you, how would you like to be remembered? And then you can make
Oh,
a guess who proposed this question.
interesting. Oh man, let's put me on the spot. How would I like to be remembered? I would like to be remembered as somebody who made a positive impact in the world and
Mm.
who lived a good life, who just lived a good life and was good to people. And I
Mhm.
don't really, I'm not one of these people that's like, I need this big legacy and I want this fame. I wish,
Mm.
2 generations from now, they'll be like, oh yeah, Hannah Dixon, she was cool. She did some really cool things. Let me tell you about her. Just kind of like casual. She was cool. She helped a lot of people.
And who do you think has suggested this question? Any guesses?
I'm gonna guess it was Tahana.
No. That was
No?
Andreas.
Who?
That was Andreas.
And yes. Oh wow. Oh, that's very sweet.
All
He's
right.
wonderful.
And with that, now this last question is from my side. So about, you've been remote working, you travel, you do what you love, and that exudes from your face how much you enjoy your work. So what is the best part of, uh, you know, your work, travel, journey? What do you really enjoy most about everything that you do? What's your favorite thing?
There's two things. I'm going to wrap it into a short answer, but I think one from a very personal perspective is the time freedom.
Mm.
Um, I come from a background where I didn't have much freedom for all kinds of reasons that we're not going to get into in this podcast episode. But having freedom over what I do with my days, not answering to somebody else, waking up on a Tuesday and being like, I feel like going to the movies today. That's like every week it's still like a pinch me moment. I'm like, wow, I designed this. This is cool. So from a personal perspective, that, and then secondary to that would be when I meet my students in real life and I get to hug them and I get to see how their life has changed, or and I meet someone who, for example, moved from a war zone and was able to live somewhere safe, or somebody who left an abusive marriage and was able to move, or someone who decided to take their digital nomad life finally on the road, and actually give them a hug and be like, "You're a real person. This is so cool." That's a big one for me.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Touching lives. I mean, nothing is better than that. Thank you so much, Hannah, for being here. I really loved our conversation. And
Likewise.
we will share all the links that people would need. Thank you so much for being here.
Can I ask you one question
Yeah,
before
sure.
we wrap up?
Yeah.
What legacy do you leave?
Um, um,
Would you like to be remembered? Yeah.
yeah, I think people could remember me as, someone who enjoyed her freedom so much that it was always her priority. And I think
Mhm.
I always, like we don't have time for that, but when you live quite a complicated life, and then you find what you love
Mhm.
and you're still pursuing that, I think that freedom is becomes quite important to you. So, and then maybe people could remember me as someone who was not so scared, who would just
Yeah.
wake up someday, decide to do something, and would just do it. I think maybe
Mhm.
something like that. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you so
Appreciate it.
much.
You're amazing for
You're
having me.
amazing, Hannah. Thank you so much for being here. Finally, we had this. Hannah, so happy to.
Hey, Priyanka.
Yeah, so yeah, we'll start again.
Okay,
All right.
good start.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey, at the same time, with I had a question that I forgot right now.
Okay, we can pause.